No one on set that afternoon was prepared for what unfolded between Shen Yue and Bai Lu. What began as a quiet filming day with lights shining softly on the stage and the crew bustling around with routine preparation turned into an unforgettable moment that would be whispered about for weeks to come. The tension started long before the argument itself. Observers later admitted that the atmosphere between the two actresses had been strange for days. Bai Lu seemed distracted, often staring at her phone when she thought no one was looking, her expression shifting from a forced smile to a deep frown. Shen Yue, on the other hand, carried herself with a quiet but sharp energy, responding politely to directions but often avoiding eye contact with Bai Lu. Crew members brushed it off at first, thinking it was just the stress of shooting, but what happened next proved it was far deeper than anyone imagined. During one particular break, the silence finally broke. Shen Yue had just finished a powerful emotional scene and was heading off the stage when she caught sight of Bai Lu sitting near the corner of the set, whispering to someone over the phone. Something about the tone of Bai Lu's voice stopped Shen Yue in her tracks. It was low and tense, almost as if Bai Lu was trying to conceal frustration. Shen Yue stepped closer, her footsteps echoing lightly across the wooden floor. "Are you going to keep pretending nothing happened?" Shen Yue's voice cut sharply across the room. Crew members froze, holding their breath. Bai Lu lowered her phone slowly, her lips pressed into a thin line as she turned to face her co-star. "What are you talking about?" Bai Lu said, her tone even but her eyes betraying a flicker of unease. "You know exactly what I am talking about," Shen Yue shot back. Her words carried weight, each one dropping heavily into the charged silence. Gasps echoed softly among the staff as cameras that were supposed to be resting for the break suddenly began recording again, some crew unable to resist capturing what was unfolding. It was no longer about acting or rehearsing. This was raw. Bai Lu stood up slowly, brushing invisible dust from her costume, her chin lifting defiantly. "If you are going to accuse me of something, do it properly," she said. "Do not stand there and throw words around without proof." Shen Yue's eyes glistened with restrained anger. "Proof," she repeated, her voice trembling slightly but gaining strength as she continued. "You were there when Dylan made the promise. You were the one who told me to trust him, and yet you hid what you knew. You kept quiet while I was left in the dark. Do you call that friendship?" The air thickened with unspoken tension. Bai Lu's expression hardened, but behind her firm stare lay a shadow of guilt. She did not answer immediately, and her silence spoke louder than any words could. The crew exchanged nervous glances, some whispering under their breath, wondering what secret had been concealed and why it had erupted in such a public way. When Bai Lu finally spoke, her voice was cold but tinged with something fragile. "You do not understand the position I was in. Sometimes silence is the only way to protect someone. If I had told you everything, it would have destroyed more than you can imagine." Shen Yue took a step closer, her hands clenched tightly by her side. "Protect someone," she repeated, "or protect yourself." That line landed like a thunderclap. Even the camera seemed to shudder as Bai Lu's face paled. For a brief moment she faltered, her composure slipping. Then her eyes flashed with sudden fire. "You think this is about me?" Bai Lu shot back, her voice rising with sharp emotion. "Do you have any idea what I risked, what I gave up, just to keep things from collapsing? You were not the only one who was hurt, but you only see your own pain." Her words echoed across the set like shards of glass, piercing through the uneasy stillness. Shen Yue's lips parted as if to reply, but her voice caught in her throat. For the first time during the argument, she looked uncertain, her confidence shaken by Bai Lu's confession. Whispers broke out among the crew. Some insisted that Bai Lu was right, that she had been protecting both of them from something bigger. Others murmured that Shen Yue's outburst revealed that Dylan's name was at the heart of it all. It was no longer just about two actresses in a heated moment. This was about loyalty, betrayal, and secrets hidden too long. Then it happened. Shen Yue's eyes filled with tears, and her voice dropped low, almost a whisper, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "You should have told me. I could have forgiven anything, but not lies, not silence." The words sank into Bai Lu like a heavy weight. For once, she had no retort. She stood frozen, her jaw trembling, her eyes glassy. In that instant the entire room, realized they were not witnessing just an argument. They were witnessing the breaking of a bond that had once been unshakable. The director stepped in nervously, trying to defuse the storm, but it was too late. Shen Yue turned abruptly, her footsteps echoing as she walked out of the set, her shoulders shaking though she tried to hide it. Bai Lu remained rooted in place, staring after her with an expression that no one could read, a mixture of regret, defiance, and pain. Later that night, rumors spread like wildfire. Clips of the confrontation leaked online, trending across social platforms within hours. Fans dissected every line, every glance, every pause, debating endlessly over who was right and who was wrong. Some defended Shen Yue, claiming she was betrayed by a friend. Others stood with Bai Lu, insisting she had carried a burden too heavy to share. Dylan's name trended as well, his silence fueling even more speculation about his involvement. But one thing was certain. What happened between Shen Yue and Bai Lu that day changed everything. The set was no longer just a workplace. It had become the stage for a real-life drama more intense and heartbreaking than any script could capture. And the words that lingered most in the minds of everyone present were not the shouts or the accusations, but Shen Yue's trembling whisper as she walked away. A whisper that echoed louder than any scream. "You should have told me." The set remained in complete silence long after Shen Yue stormed out. Crew members stood frozen, their hands clutching cameras and scripts, unsure of whether to follow her or to stay put. Bai Lu still had not moved. She stood there as though anchored to the ground, her expression hard yet fragile, her eyes shimmering with something unspoken. Minutes passed like hours. When she finally spoke, her voice was low, not to anyone in particular, almost as if she was whispering to herself. "She does not understand," she never did. The assistant director cleared his throat nervously, but no one dared to interrupt. The weight of what had happened hung heavy in the air. Someone quietly switched off one of the lights, plunging part of the set into shadow, as if even the lamps could not bear to watch what was happening. Outside, Shen Yue leaned against the studio wall, her breath shaky, her chest rising and falling rapidly. She had been holding back tears in front of everyone, but now they fell freely, streaking down her face as she pressed a trembling hand against her lips. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, and when she finally pulled it out, Dylan's name lit up the screen. She hesitated, her finger hovering over the decline button. Her heart pounded. After everything, how could he call now, when the wound was still so raw? She answered anyway. "You," Dylan's voice came through, rough with urgency. "I heard something happened. Are you okay?" Shen Yue's silence was deafening. Then she laughed bitterly, though there was no humor in it. "Am I okay?" she whispered. "Do you even realize that everything leads back to you?" Dylan's end of the line went still. Then he muttered, "I never wanted it to be like this. I never wanted you to find out this way." Shen Yue's grip tightened on the phone. "Then why did you let her carry your secret? Why let her lie for you? Why leave me standing there, thinking I was the fool?" Her voice cracked, raw with pain. Before Dylan could reply, she ended the call, her fingers trembling so violently that the phone nearly slipped from her hand. Meanwhile, back inside, Bai Lu had finally sunk into a chair. Her face was pale, her hands clasped together, so tightly her knuckles were white. When one of the crew members approached to comfort her, she simply shook her head. "You cannot fix this," she said softly. "No one can." The whispers grew louder after the break. Rumors spread like wildfire among the team, twisting and turning into countless versions of the truth. Some said Bai Lu had betrayed Shen Yue for her own career. Others claimed Dylan had promised something to both women and failed them both. But the one detail that remained constant was the explosive argument and the undeniable cracks it left behind. The very next day, footage of the clash surfaced online. Though shaky and blurred, the raw emotion in Shen Yue's voice and the icy sharpness of Bai Lu's replies cut through the screen. Fans were stunned. Hashtags began trending, with millions of posts debating who was right, who was wrong, and whether Dylan's silence was proof of guilt. By evening, Shen Yue posted a cryptic message on her personal account. "Some wounds are deeper than silence. Some truths come too late." The post went viral instantly, fueling speculation that she was finally walking away from everything, from Dylan, and maybe even from Bai Lu. Hours later, Bai Lu responded with her own message. It was not an explanation, not an apology, but a single line that shook the internet. Not all sacrifices are visible. Remember that before you judge me. The fanbase was split. Thousands flooded the comment sections with anger, disappointment, and confusion. Others defended her fiercely, arguing that perhaps Bai Lu had indeed sacrificed something none of them understood. The divide grew so fierce that online communities began choosing sides, calling themselves Team Shen Yue or Team Bai Lu, turning the actress's private pain into a public battleground. Behind the scenes, Dylan could no longer hide. He called for an urgent private meeting with both women, insisting it was time to end the silence. Against their better judgment, they agreed. The meeting was arranged at a quiet cafe far from the city center, but even there the air between them was suffocating. Shen Yue arrived first, her eyes sharp, her posture stiff. Bai Lu followed, her face unreadable but her every step measured and deliberate. Dylan came last, carrying the kind of guilt that weighed heavy in his every movement. He sat across from them, and for a long moment no one spoke. Finally, Dylan broke the silence. You both deserve the truth. No more lies. He confessed. About the promises he had made. About the love he had tried to balance between friendship and loyalty. About the choices he thought would protect both women, but only ended up destroying them. His words spilled out like waves crashing against a cliff, relentless and unstoppable. By the time he finished, both women sat in stunned silence, their emotions swirling too violently to process. Shen Yue's voice was the first to break through. It was soft, trembling but unyielding. You did not protect me, Dylan. You broke me, and you used her to cover your tracks. Bai Lu's eyes glistened, but her expression was fierce. And I let you use me, she admitted, because I thought it was better than watching everything fall apart. The cafe felt like the epicenter of an earthquake. 3 people bound by secrets, betrayal, and silence, finally facing the truth. But the damage had already been done. Shen Yue stood, her chair scraping harshly against the floor. She looked at Dylan with eyes that once held love but now only carried sorrow. You will never understand what you cost me, she said before walking out, leaving behind an emptiness that Dylan could not fill. Bai Lu remained seated, staring at him with a mixture of pity and anger. You wanted to save us both, she said. But all you did was make us enemies. She rose slowly, her final glance sharp as a blade, then left him alone in the dim cafe. Dylan sat in silence long after they were gone, realizing that no confession, no explanation, could undo what had been lost. The truth was out, but the truth had destroyed everything. That night, the story dominated every corner of the internet. Fans debated endlessly, tears and fury flooding the comments. For some, it was the tragic ending of a story they had believed in. For others, it was the raw beginning of something far bigger. But for Shen Yue, for Bai Lu, and for Dylan, there was no beginning. There was only the aftermath, and the words that echoed endlessly, haunting them long after the lights went out, were Shen Yue's from that first argument. You should have told me.